Yoy!
I'm not gonna worry about your level of concern.
Yoy and double yoy!
We talking about
Twitter.
Triple yoy!
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Quadruple yoy!
We love Pittsburgh, PA. We love Steelers Nation.
It's my quarterback.
We can't speculate and recollate.
We mock ourselves.
It is. Oh, you stupid audio. Okay, it's time again. Cut the music. Who needs production? All I work on, and then it doesn't work when I want it to. It's what Jin's talking about, by the way. It's the conversation about the Pittsburgh Steelers social media conversation. If you consider toxic sludge a conversation, if that is a way to define conversation.
Hazmat conversation.
Yes, the hazmat, the 3 Mile Island of Steeler Nation, and it lives on social media. And we're here to expose the week's hot and toxic takes. I'm Kyle Kreis, here in front of the Great White Wall with Greg Benevent.
Hello, I am so glad to be back.
The great, I think it's off-white. I think it's his egg. Is it eggshell? I don't know.
It's very off-white. I mean, is this stucco? I've never known exactly what that word means.
Yeah, me neither. It's Stucco. It sounds like our next quarterback, I think. Is it Joe Stucco? Okay, coming up on today's show is more of the same. People not having any type of patience, and people wanting answers to questions that won't even be asked until camp. And, of course, mock drafts. I did turn on the Steelers mock draft Google alert. I figured,
unfortunately, it's that time.
You know, we said before, I'll wait for a quarterback, and then who knew that this was? I tried to think, is this the latest? How late before we knew? Besides a camp battle, we've had the Cordell Miller camp battle. We had the Mitch Kenny Mason camp battle,
but even that was pole position. With Mitch.
But have we ever just not had the quarterback on our roster this late?
Not that I can remember in any time in my lifetime. I mean, like you said, there may be, but even if it was a camp battle, like, okay, that was the headliner camp battle. That was who you knew was going to be what we were going to fight out for. You knew who was going to fight for it. Now you don't even know who's going to be in the pole position, or if there even will be a camp battle or not. This is as much uncertainty as I can remember this late in the season.
There's a parking spot empty. It says for the CEO, and we don't know who is going to pull in.
QB1 is it painted on the bottom, and it's very empty. There are cars surround it.
Well, you know what that means then. It's time to hit the music. QB22 plus few.
Where are you?
We've got some work to do now. QB22 plus 3 now.
We need
Some help from you now. You know we've got a mystery to solve. Which QB do we want, gold and black?
but don't get sad.
If QBs do what they will do, then they can earn themselves a yellow jacket. You know, I guess there could be another yellow jacketer in the pipeline.
Yes,
I wonder if that is what if that's what this is all about. It's like, you know, we've done it with Duck and Kenny. Yellow jackets only if we're going to sign a QB free agent. Well, enough speculating and regulating, or is it just beginning?
It just might be.
Why don't we get to some takes, starting with at the Onion weighing in. I think this is the kind of reporting that I actually can trust. Mm-hmm. Numerous teams express interest in Aaron Rodgers playing elsewhere.
That's good.
Which I think is, you know, who is saying yes to Aaron Rodgers, at least I don't see anyone is Steelers side, not the insiders, not the fans, not who's saying yes to Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, the latest report we had was it was Tomlin's idea, that it's Tomlin one. I know some of the insiders said that, but yeah, they put out an offer. We know that they put out an offer for Rodgers, and in true Steelers fashion, they don't really negotiate with that offer. They put the offer out, and then you take it or you go to the Jets, since that's what happened with Fields.
Take it or leave it. Everyone knows that you don't accept the first job offer. You always say, "Is this open for negotiation?" Except for me, when I took my last job, I was just like, "Thank you, please." What time? 3. Thank you. 3 a.m. See ya. So no one wants Aaron Rodgers except Tomlin, and
well, I mean, probably other people in the team do too. What we do know is they definitively don't want Russ. That's the one thing that comes through pretty clear. I don't even think they made him an offer, right? I mean, so it stands to reason that there are probably more people that want Rodgers than we know. I'm certainly not one of them, but I'd prefer whoever's cheapest. But I certainly wouldn't want Rodgers over the other options because, man, I can't imagine he's the cheapest one.
Well, I think we got the cheapest, right? I think we got
right.
Maga Mace, and
yes, Mace can come in and give median play. I could live with that.
And Flacco might be the next cheapest. So
I'd be fine with that too.
With a Flacco Mace room. Well, how about what stats guy Daniel Valente has to say? Very interesting to compare the tune last season with the Steelers leaders recruiting Russell Wilson to this offseason with Aaron Rodgers. Have to wonder if the guys in the locker room even want Rodgers to hold up to. Yeah, no one's saying, last time we heard about the 4-hour love meeting with Tomlin and then the big takeout dinner. Where did they go? Were they at Woodson's Grill with Minka and TJ and Cam? Can you imagine going to that dinner and seeing that table? Russ Wilson. But this year it's nothing. No one even cares who the QB is.
I guess. I mean, but maybe they learned something. I mean, they saw what happened, that they had that love fest last year, and then now they can't seem to get far enough away from Russ. So maybe there's some change in hearts there. But yeah, it just seems like I don't want to put too much of my own thoughts on and feelings on the team, because I feel like that's what leads a lot of these bizarre people to say increasingly bizarre things. But I wouldn't want to work with someone like this.
No.
I wouldn't want them to be in a position of authority over me, whether as a colleague or I guess a supervisor if you're like a wide receiver. So I wouldn't want to put up with this, and I would have struggled with that in the days of, him winning NFL MVP versus the days of being told how well he played down the second half of last season.
Making more money than everyone except maybe TJ
and DK Metcalf.
Yeah. Probably more authority than some of the coaching staff. Of course, they'll never say that. They'll never be like, oh, no, I listen to my coach. Yeah, sure, just like Ben. But it was different with Ben because he was there 18 years.
Right. Aaron Rodgers would be the offensive coordinator if he played for this team. There's absolutely no doubt of that. And it's still, at least 50-50 that he's the quarterback at this point. I mean, I hope he retires. But it's every few days you get something of, the Steelers are willing to move on, but you also hear, the Steelers feel confident that Rodgers is going to sign with them eventually, but I'd feel more confident if he didn't.
It's just, it's almost like Franco playing for Seattle or something. I don't know. It's just, it doesn't
right. It doesn't feel right.
Bring me Russ. Well, is this how the locker room feels? Because at BT Steel Curtain, behind the Steel Curtain, Cam Hayward on Aaron Rodgers. Either you want to be a Steeler or you don't. Now, the headlines were all crazy.
Yeah.
Now, some people said there's a little more context, like, well, he's really just talking about the darkness retreats or all the, he's talking. But let's hear from the man himself. This is Cameron Hayward on Aaron Rodgers. And the sound like this. Oh, come!
I ain't doing that. Or darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Like, either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch.
What?
Like, if you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch.
What?
Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to be part of it, so be it. If you don't, no skin on my back.
What?
So that's pretty definitive. Now, but is he just talking about I'm not going to do the Aaron Rodgers antics, or is he saying like enough is enough? Like you are a Steeler or you aren't.
I think both matter a lot. I think I think it gets back to what you said a few minutes ago, Kyle, when you asked, has this ever happened before? No, it hasn't happened in our time following it as fans, and it certainly hasn't happened in the time of Cam Hayward's professional career on this team. So I think he, like everyone else, is tired of the idea of not knowing one way or the other. And then I also wonder if maybe Cam's comments also are trying to head off the, hey, if they do sign Rodgers, you're not doing any of that nonsense where you don't show up at minicamp, where you show up at things when you want, when you do things on your schedule. No. If you're going to do this, you do this all the way. And I take that as the added context of you're either a Steeler or you aren't. That's what else entails being a Steeler right now.
Is there, it's kind of like, is Aaron Rodgers get the AB exception? Like, oh, the talent is so great that he can bend the team rules even at 41.
I imagine he would if he comes to this team, just because it's not that Rodgers still has all that elite talent. I'm sure, like Ben's last year, would still show up from time to time. But also the idea of if Rodgers does show up, if Rodgers does comes here, he's not here long. I doubt he sees that second year, and because they're obviously going to get some kind of young kid the next season. But so if Rodgers does come, which again is probably still more likely than not, as we sit here, that he's not there that second year. So it would just be okay. Let him do whatever he wants. He's gone in January.
Okay, well let's. Why don't we take the takes to another level?
He's heating up.
At Steelers Steelers Nation, Australia, Mason Rudolph is greater than Aaron Rodgers.
There you go.
How on a scale of 1 to 10, how accurate is that?
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, it's March is what the schedule is. It's time to be excited about things that are most likely untrue. No, I can't entirely roll it out, as silly as it sounds. Obviously, Mason still doesn't have, Rodgers' release is still quick. Rodgers is able to read defenses unlike very, very few players in the history of the National Football League. But boy, if Broderick Jones misses a block, who do you want back there, Mason or Aaron Rodgers? That's an easy one.
Okay, well, then is Mason greater than Russ Wilson?
I don't know. I think Russ is still better at reading defenses than Mason would be. Russ's deep ball is one of the best ever in the history of the league, and that's part of the reason I would have liked to have seen them sign Russ. Is that if George Pickens is still on this team when the season starts, and I don't know if that's going to be the case, then the idea of, hey, let's throw it as deep as possible to maybe the game's two best deep receivers. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, Mace is going to look like
right? Old-time Flacco when they were going to the Super Bowl, and it was just throw it deep and hope for pass interference or get it to one of those Ravens receivers.
Is that what they're thinking? With any of these guys, we'll take a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers because with these receivers, all he has to do is just get it in the air.
It's not crazy, but even then, with 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, that offense is probably going to look a lot more like late-era Ben, where it's not as many deep passes. It's, 2 to 3 seconds and the ball's out of there. And I don't know if that, obviously Metcalf and Pickens are both talented enough to play that kind of game, but I don't think that's where their talents are best utilized throughout the course of a game.
I've had really intimate relationships with individuals at that position.
I don't see Aaron Rodgers having intimate relationships with Mike Tomlin and or any of these people.
I think the same thing, and yet this is still going on. It's still more likely than not he's the quarterback. I agree with you. This feels bizarre and it feels out of character. But until the no is definitive, there's something keeping this alive, and it's not. And because, like you said, the fans don't seem to want it. It doesn't seem like the players should want it. It doesn't seem like the team would want it. Yet it persists.
It feels like, is this like a major league spinoff? Is this like a bad direct-to-cable major league spinoff where we're like, we've got the superstar free agent veteran coming in for this team that's all dysfunctional, and the fans want the head coach and the owner gone, and this team has to learn how to work together while conquering their demons.
Well, first off, Scott Bakula is infinitely more charismatic than Aaron Rodgers. Just to be clear, that's the first thing I feel like I have to say. I feel that defensively, I have to say that. But no, it does have that kind of one last heist kind of feel
Yeah.
to it. But I think, but but it makes sense what you're saying. I think that's what a lot of us are feeling emotionally right now, is that like you have to look to movies and other things that, because it's one thing for the Steelers to make changes the way the things they do. This feels profoundly un-Steeler-like. I mean, I get the idea.
Yeah.
I get the reasoning behind it. I can't say I agree with it, but this feels as far afield from how we perceive the Steelers way, even the more modern version of it, than I think a lot of us imagined.
Well, let's get back to reality with our current QB1, Mason Rudolph,
There it is.
at Alicia Dawn. Alicia Dawn. The defenses Mason played in 2023 rankings: Seattle 30th, Bengals 31st, Colts 24th, and the Ravens sat their starters. Can we please just pump the brakes? Is all I ask. We last saw Mason as the Pittsburgh hero, but was it against? Was it?
He didn't play the Colts.
He didn't play the Colts?
Mitch.
Oh, well, Alicia Dawn just got fact checked in real time. But it was the Bengals. It was,
the Bengals, Seahawks, Ravens. Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, I those are all reasonable points. My counter argument would be how bad the Steelers' offense was at that time. I mean, that was not a good Steelers offense. That was still the Matt Canada playbook. Two other dudes calling it offensive. Mason Cole, Zach Frazier was not there. At whatever thoughts you may have on Broderick Jones, he didn't have an extra year of experience beneath him. That Steelers offense was much worse. And so, I mean, it's again, Mason is probably not leading this team to the Super Bowl, but the idea that they wouldn't be a competitive team with Mason feels very unlikely, particularly with the defense they still have. And also, that was the defense. Remember, it was I don't even remember all the Miles Jack, all the dudes coming off their own couches to play. So this should be. While those defenses were bad, and this lady was right, they played bad defenses. The Colts thing notwithstanding, who blew out the Steelers with Mitch, and that's what led to Mason. But they did play a lot of bad defenses. But this Steelers team should be appreciably better than that one, particularly when next season starts.
How about this? Let's get to the stats of Mace at Jack Sperry, Jack_Sperry. Jack Sperry, your favorite YouTuber.
Oh, yeah.
Mason Rudolph's career averages and where he would have ranked among NFL quarterbacks in those categories last year. Completion percentage, 63.7, 26th. Yards per attempt, 6.7, 31st. Touchdown percentage, 4.1, 23rd. Passer rating, 84.7, 30th. So, would Mason be the worst starting NFL quarterback come September?
I mean, no, that depends a lot on what the Browns really are going to do with Watson. But I mean, he'd be in the lower tier of it to start. I understand. So this is, if I want to understand this person's stats correctly, it's his career averages and where they would have ranked against the career averages of all the other quarterbacks.
No, I think just among NFL QBs last year.
Okay, so this person got their stats by putting Mason's stats from 2019 as well as the stats with the Tennessee Titans last year, who earned the first pick in the draft on merit and merged.
I don't know if that would probably make these even worse.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. Yeah, so it's with Mason, you're picking which narrative you want, because I can see why this guy went to these stats. So it can be, you could put him at those games at the end of the 2023 season, or you could put that last year with the Titans when it was 11 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, I think. Where's the stats? So it could be very bad, but also by that same token, I'm sure even with all these good receivers, they're not telling Mason, hey, go out and win this game until you have to. You're probably going to get a lot of the Russ playbook for the first three quarters versus the fourth quarter, where it's like, hey, Russ, what we've done hasn't worked. Go try and win this game, sort of, kind of, a little bit, maybe.
Cam said that the Mace signing is the locker room signing. Like that's like throwing a bone to the locker room because he's well liked among everyone, I guess. And so I'm thinking, okay, so what? The rest of the quarterback room is going to be
right, just the most off-putting people you can think of. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers, and then it's going to be Johnny Football. I don't know. It's it seems very bizarre to me, but there is something about like,
Because wouldn't Flacco have been maybe a better backup than Mason? I don't, I know he won those games, but and I know he's a known entity, but hasn't the staff and the team? There's so much turnover even since Mace was on the team just in 2023.
Right, it's a very different team than the one.
So it's like why
on.
why did we need the reunion unless they thought, oh well, we know he can start. Well, Joe Flacco could start some games.
Right, Joe Flacco could, and I know Flacco's had some good stats compared to some of the other guys in the past. I mean, originally what we'd heard was that the Mason signing was to back up Rodgers eventually. And it was like they have a similar play style, which okay. But yeah, that it made more sense to have him as the backup. But I don't know. I mean, it's where we sit now. The quarterback position is so confusing and so uncertain. And I do appreciate the Steelers trying to find as many solutions as possible. I really do. I think that's the right way to go about it. I don't know if this is the right way to go about it. To be like, well, Aaron Rodgers can show up whenever he likes, and we'll give him $30 million. That feels like a tough sell.
Yeah, but it's almost like, well, it's the last card in the deck. Going back to, okay, well, we're going to get the top free agent in the market, Mitch Trubisky.
Yes.
We're going to draft a first round quarterback, Kenny Pickett.
Mm-hmm.
None of that worked out. Now let's move on to Russell Wilson, maybe a future Hall of Famer, and let's get Justin Fields, the hottest first rounder that didn't work out. It was just like everything. Okay, what's left? The 41-year-old. Hall of Famer. Okay, let's pull him into. So they're not. They are trying every option. You can't fault them for not overturning every stone.
I think that's right, and I'll piggyback on top of that. That you also can't fault them for sticking too much with something that isn't working. I mean, I know people were doing that at the time, but Tomlin gave Mitch those 3 games, including the Colts game, before going to Mason. What's the worst, quarterback performance that Tomlin was willing to tolerate? I mean, I guess it's Kenny's loss to the Dolphins, or Kenny's loss
Jets.
to DTR and the Browns.
Oh,
But even then, we heard Dulac was saying that next day, because they fired Canada that Tuesday, was that Dulac was reporting, hey, they're thinking of benching Kenny before this Cardinals game, and if they lose that with Kenny, maybe they do before the injury. Tomlin is not too doesn't take too long to get out the hook.
Get out the hook. Well, what is is there any reasonable voices in this sea of quarterback confusion? If only there was a coach from the past. Where's my coach?
I personally think that Russell Wilson is your best choice. It's the better. It's going to be a better offensive line room with coming back and moving Broderick to left tackle. I think you're looking at the best receiving core you're going to have in a long time. And so I think the offense in whole, and I think with Arthur Smith in the second year, in theory should take a step forward. I personally.
Right, Russ Wilson. That's what I've been saying since day one. Me and Bill Cowher are on the page. We know it with the receivers, with the O line getting. But that was the thing. People were like, "Oh, let me rewind." Okay, if it's pocket presence and feet, and that if the O line gets better, then Russ should get better. Now, if it's Russ has dead arm, which I've only seen one report on Twitter from, he said, a teammate told me, if Russ has dead arm, and that's why they're not, it's not because of the locker room, right? It's not because of how he's in the locker room. It could be. We don't know.
We know. They've done everything they can not to sign him.
Well, I'm going to assume it's not anything in the locker. He's a great teammate. We've heard that report that there was friction with Arthur Smith. I don't know. We've heard reports from every Steeler in the past. Ben reports every year. These kind of, so I'm not going to give one little thing as that's what's caused this big animosity. It's certainly not how he's been in the community. No, that's a plus.
Absolutely not.
Man of the year behavior.
Certainly.
And until that 5-game losing streak,
right.
The on the field play was at least up to expectation. Maybe didn't exceed. But we didn't have 30 touchdown passes this year.
Right.
We didn't have 4,000 yards passing yards. We didn't. We didn't win the division. But is it still right? To me, it still is obvious that it's Russ. It feels like I'm missing out on the information that says it's not Russ.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. That's actually exactly what I was going to say. I also feel like something changed somewhere. Because didn't Rooney say in his statement, hey, we want to sign one of these quarterbacks?
Yeah.
I was very clear about that. Even during training camp, at the end of training camp, before Russ didn't start against the Falcons, Dulac, I believe it was Dulac, and other people reported, hey, the Steelers are looking at extensions right now.
Yeah.
And then the season ended, and the Steelers have done everything they can to get away from Russell Wilson. They have absolutely shut him out. They refused to even negotiate, depending on what you hear. They didn't offer him a contract. They could not make it clearer they want nothing to do with him. Now, if this is a way of driving down his price and some kind of brilliant thing by Con, sure, but they really, really do not look like they want to sign him under any circumstances. Maybe that changes. Again, I think he's a better option than Rodgers, but they really don't seem to want to sign him.
Could this, because everything we heard out of Russ was we're in talks, we're going to make it happen. I'm still a Steeler, blah blah blah. Could it be anything like, hey, you're my first choice, Pittsburgh. Go, if you go ahead and flirt with all these other people you want, and then that I'll be here waiting for your decision. Otherwise, I'll be here waiting. I don't know.
I mean, maybe that's also. But remember when it was announced that Russ was going to visit the Browns and the Giants, and I think it was Carboli that tweeted out, "Boy, somebody really wants that to be known." When you see 10 people tweet that out all at the exact same time, hey, Russ is going to visit the Browns. Hey, Russ is going to visit the Giants. I mean, I agree with you. I find it genuinely surprising and a little off-putting just how much the Steelers are saying, hey, we want nothing to do with Russ on any level.
I mean, that's got to be the first question, right? I mean, even after the first draft, even if we don't talk to Tomlin and Con until draft day, isn't that still going to be the first? Oh, you just traded up for the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, but what happened with Russ? That's kind of still the first question I got.
I mean, I imagine it'll be asked in the first 5 questions. I mean, the first questions will all be about whoever the new quarterback is. But yeah, it would certainly be at some point. It'll be what happened with Russ, and if you want to know what that answer looks like, go back to last year, Tomlin sitting at that really lovely table talking about Deontay Johnson, where he says, we love the guy, it was just fantastic, and at no point in the answer will you get the answer as to what happened.
Based on that answer, I was like, I drafted Deontay to my fantasy team. I was like, this guy is going to be a Pro Bowler. He's going to kill with Carolina.
It was so good what Tomlin said. It really was.
He was, he basically said he was a Pro Bowler and whatever.
Right, and that's what they'll say. They'll say Russ is a Hall of Famer and how great. And they'll say basically everything you said a few moments ago about the community and about the locker room and how glad we were to have him and this and this and this. And you will never get that answer.
Oh, Russ. Why couldn't I thought this was going to be a storybook, and now the storybook's going to be with Aaron Rodgers.
Well, we don't know that yet.
Yeah.
I honestly, the one thing I do feel confident about saying is I think each day they don't sign Rodgers, the percentage ticks up just a little bit higher that he retires. I think each day this goes by without it just goes a little bit higher. How could it not?
Man, I've been thinking some what ifs like Dwayne Haskins what ifs this week. What man, would we have been in this boat? Who knows?
And it's also too other weird things can still happen. There's still time between now and when the season starts. There's many more bizarre things that could take place. I'm not sure they're a whole lot more bizarre than what's happened and continuing to happen in terms of this holding pattern, but certainly more strange things could occur.
That'll be the last time that I address it.
I bet it is not the last time we address it.
I bet it's not.
Why don't we? Yeah, I turned the Google alert on for Steelers mock drafts, but it's I'm not counting them yet.
Good,
Let's just do one. Let's just one little quick mock draft bit here from @NeilCoulong. Without a second-round pick, trading up isn't feasible. At 21, you got to let the draft come to you, but I think there'll be a good D-line candidate available. I'll probably go there. Makes sense to me. I don't
Yeah.
know. Staying put at 21. Going back to the old Kevin Colbert philosophy
Yeah.
that we think there's 21 great players on this draft.
Yes, no, I agree. I could even be talked into trading down a little bit, trying to get an extra third if there's that many defensive linemen. Particularly, I think that could be useful if Deion Sanders' kids drops or someone else that somebody might try to trade up for at that kind of thing, or if that really good running back from Boise State goes early and then someone tries to trade up for the Ohio State back or whatever. Like I think there's a lot of good defensive linemen there, and I also think there's a lot of players that maybe another team might say, hey, maybe we'll overpay to get up to 21 and get somebody. But the most likely thing right now is they stay at 21, they draft a big defensive lineman, and he helps the team. I think that's still the likeliest outcome.
And looking at the roster right now, he's got to start, dude.
Right.
But,
No. It's him and Mon Adams. I also don't buy the idea that because waiting for Rodgers caused them to miss out on some of the defensive linemen in free agency. I think what caused them to miss out on some of the defensive linemen in free agency is other people overpaying for the defensive linemen in free agency.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, the only name I knew was Javon Hargrave.
Right.
Well, let's talk about someone who knows all the names. Con season continues, even if Con is trying to dig himself out of a hole now or something. In this season, he fell into the abyss at Gotham Stadium there. At Brian Batko. Sensible signing for the Steelers to get a newer, younger, bigger DeMonte Casey in this deep post. A bonus that he's played for 2 Super Bowl winning teams and also the Browns. And we're talking about my newest TikTok follow. Thornhill he was at the Browns, but I guess he was also with Kansas City. That's where he won. He's the Super Bowl champ.
And he has a tattoo of each team he's played for.
Oh, yeah. Well, Steeler fans love this pick. We play the Browns twice a year, and this was the first time I heard of a Thornhill that wasn't an 80s miniseries on television. But, it's like, is it a needle mover? I don't think that DeMonte KZ, it was a needle mover. I don't know.
No, they play a lot of three. We always hear they want to play a lot of 3 safety, and then they don't play as much 3 safety as you think. Maybe this guy lets them play 3 safety. I think they definitely needed an extra safety. I think this is an unfortunate thing to that poor kid that got hurt in the Detroit preseason game last year. I think that might have been his position. If he hadn't gotten hurt, maybe they don't do this, but they would have brought in some kind of depth. This guy can seem to do a lot of things. He has a bit of an injury history, but they had to get an extra safety one way or the other, and it seems as good a pick as any.
Yeah, I'm not getting my Thornhill jersey yet. Although
that was a lovely video of him going from the Brown stuff.
He's good on this. On his TikTok skills are up there. I recommend the follow. I follow, and his wife showed up on my algorithm too. So I followed that as well.
Nice.
Her. I don't know. I'm not a pronouns guy. Sorry. Okay, how about some people who are not on the roster? At Blitzberg. Najee Harris on his time with the Steelers via KCAL News. Is this or not? My time in Pittsburgh, it was a lot of learning things, a lot of learning experiences. Playing for Mike T first, of course, that's the lead. Playing for Mike T, playing in that division. There are a lot of ways I didn't even realize what the NFL was really until I came to Pittsburgh. I don't want to go into detail about it, but I feel there was a lot of stuff in my game where I could have elevated more. I could have did more. I feel like I just didn't get it done. I feel like I was obviously missing something. Is he saying he personally, like his personal game, or is he saying he wasn't given the opportunity to do these things?
Well, I don't know if this was a diss. The diss was when he talked about the weight room.
Yeah,
that was a diss. That was an actual diss. That was.
Well, we knew that. We get these report cards. I guess take them for serious.
Right. That was a diss. I don't know how much of this is just the way that Najee talks. And,
Yeah.
he's a bit of a thorny, just because we said it last day, he's a bit of a thorny personality, which is fine. I think the guy's a good back, and I think he's going to be great for the Chargers. It's if the Steelers play the Chargers, he's going to be a real pain to deal with. But yeah, I think, he was, if you remember, he was always the one that, like, whenever they would talk, the insiders would be like, he is the most, or one of the most anti-Canada people there. So this might be some residual off of that. But, I can't help but chalk a lot of this up to the way that Najee just is Najee.
Well, once again, another Steeler testimonial where the first word out of their mouth, playing for Mike T. That's his biggest takeaway in Pittsburgh and all former Steelers. If it's not the first word, it's the first sentence or first. It's up there. Mike Tomlin. Once again, playing for Mike Tomlin. All right. Well, wait. While we're in the running back room. We've got someone real outrage here at NFL_Dove Kleiman. Awful. Steelers kick returner Cordell Patterson is extremely upset that the team only posted a happy birthday message on their story and not on their main IG page. Damn, I couldn't even get a post on the page. Y'all know something I don't know? Patterson deserves better. What is it? I'm kind of familiar with my online etiquette, but is the birthday post in the story a big diss compared to the main page? I mean, he is under contract still.
He is under contract. He's the one that they're always the most surprised they haven't cut yet. But he was also the one, if you remember, after the loss to the Ravens in the playoffs, posted himself shoveling snow and said, I might as well do some work around the house since I'm not going to get a carry in the game. So this might just be part of Cordell Patterson's social media feed. I did like, and if this is his last year, I hope someone else takes this up. During warmups, he plays catch with fans in the stands.
Oh.
I think that's so cool. And frankly, someone else should have done that a long time ago. But yeah, I'm surprised he's still on the team. He might be too. I don't know if he makes it all the way to camp if they do draft any kind of running back. But yeah, I mean, it's the idea of this guy saying awful and Patterson deserves better makes it sound like I don't know. The Steelers locked him out of the facility and didn't tell him. I mean, you, the person listening here watching this, has your job posted about your birthday? Mine didn't. I mean, we used to do Employee of the Week, and that was for like a very brief period of time, and that was only during the pandemic. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Very few businesses do that, I think, and I don't know. Is it? I mean, like TJ might get the birthday post. Well, you haven't looked into this, have you? I hope you haven't.
I didn't. I don't have the stats on who, but there is usually. But also, I notice a lot of vets, alumni get the birthday stuff, and that's on Twitter. I definitely see that on Twitter. IGs is so much. I'm not going through it with Dr. Watson there over at Carnegie Mellon U. But yeah, no, I'm not. And then I'm not giving the outrage, but.
Dove has plenty of outrage for all of us. We don't have to add any outrage.
Yeah, I have to put my birthday into the scripts so that when Mario would read them, so that he would know. Oh, it's Kyle's birthday. We would do like celebrity birthdays. I'd be like, Johnny Carson, Pele, Kyle, Christ. Oh, okay, and that's how I would. But that's how I got donuts in the morning. Hey. So you got to do what you got to do.
There you go.
All right, one last thing. Is this? Do we even deserve the band on the field? I think we played with the lead today.
I think so too. Since we're back.
One last thing. Let's give the final word to at Faribaugh FB, Nick Faribaugh. Credit to Artie Burns. This will be his 10th season in the NFL. A decade in the league is a real accomplishment. Not easy.
That's right.
Yeah, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. He's not a Pro Bowler.
He's not a starter.
He's not a starter. But is it can we evaluate a first-round pick on the fact that he's a 10-year NFL player? I mean, is that how do we define what a success is for someone like a first round?
Well, I think it's Artie Burns is a success. The scouting, drafting, and development of him from the Pittsburgh Steelers perspective was not. He was an overdraft. that's fairly definitive. I mean, and there's been a few of these with this. Ziggy Hood, a very similar trajectory.
Yeah.
Had a very, very lengthy career, but was not a starter. Certainly not somebody that could elevate the team that was, had the impact. He was an overdraft. Artie Burns was an overdraft. Was it Jarvis Jones and Devin Bush were even grosser. More dramatic overdrafts than this. Terrell Edmonds wasn't. I mean, also an overdraft, but not nearly to the extent of this. But it speaks very well of Artie Burns in that, hey, I'm sure throughout at some point in this time, he did some things like play special teams and came in, as a substitute and a backup, things that, hey, someone who was a first-round draft pick really might not have anticipated when they first came into the league. So it's a real credit to him. I mean, when you mentioned this, I thought if the Steelers have taken advantage of these situations from other teams, Darius Hayward-Bay is a more dramatic overdraft than anyone the Steelers have taken, including Devin Bush. And wow, what an addition he was on the special teams and as a mentor and a mister that could use someone like Darius Hayward-Bay again on this team. So your career and your life maybe don't end when that rookie contract does.
Maybe we should do the March Madness of overdrafted. Is that I think that might be easier. I don't know. Would it be? Right. Currently, I'll tell you what's going on with March Madness over at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com.
Okay.
We'll be entering the Elite 8.
Okay.
You can go up and vote for the Sweet 16 right now. You know that people are voting Boswell over Santonio Holmes.
Oh.
As far as that's the 3 seed Boswell versus Santonio trading up for Santonio Holmes as a 2 seed. The votes are going to Boswell.
It's got to be a recency bias, maybe a younger fans kind of thing. I'm always surprised that somebody too young to have a working knowledge of Santonio Holmes is listening to this, but I'm grateful to have you here.
That's okay. The person that trained me for my job, my new job, was not old enough to remember 9/11. So there you go. There you go.
That's what we've been talking about.
That is what we've been talking about. Keep the conversation going.
Right.
What we need is some word of mouth, a iTunes review.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Spotify. Do Spotify does reviews? I don't know. We get Spotify comments. However you listen. If it's Spotify, leave a comment maybe. If it's YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment. I think we have 101 YouTube subscribers, so we're probably slightly smaller than a 2-year-old. I don't know. There's 2-year-old influencers with more audience than us. Leave an iTunes review. I think that is the biggest help.
Okay.
YouTube, Spotify, whatever, Twitter, TikTok, sure, so be it. Reddit. You want to talk about us on Reddit? That would be sweet.
There you go.
Greg, where can we find you on the internet?
Last, you can find me at Instagram at Greg Benevent, B as in boy, E-N-E, V as in Victor, E-N-T.
Until next week, when we will start counting mock drafts in earnest, as earnest as we can.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
And maybe I'll be on my Aaron Rodgers ayahuasca retreat as I capitulate and just embrace the
Healdom.
It's like oh, you wanted Lombardi so bad, you'll do anything. I don't. Is it worth it? Is it worth the sacrifice, Atreyu?
I don't know.
All right, until then, keep listening to your coach.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.